Welcome to another episode of Me and My Health Up. I'm your host, or maybe co-host today, or maybe I'm the interviewee. You're about to find out. However, I'm Anthony Hartcher. I'm a clinical nutritionist and lifestyle medicine specialist. The purpose of this podcast is to enhance and enlighten your well-being. And we've decided to bring some variety to the show because variety is key to stimulating your dopamine. We want you to have a bit of a dopamine and feel good about yourself. So we're going to add a bit of spice to the show. And I've brought on Caitlin Williams, who's doing an internship with me&my Wellness. And so Caitlin's come along for the experience. She wants to embrace it. And she's brought along an exciting topic to talk about. Have you ever wondered what a healthcare practitioner does in their day? So that's Caitlin's topic. And I'm going to hand it over to Caitlin to introduce herself and to introduce the topic. And we're going to get into a beautiful discussion about what a healthcare practitioner does to stay healthy and happy. Hey, how are you, Caitlin?
Hey, I'm doing well. My name is Caitlin, and I'm a biology major, a junior in college. And, I was just thinking to myself this morning, what does a health practitioner do in their life? Like, what do they do on a daily basis to be healthy? Are they actually healthy? And I want to know who better to ask than Anthony. So I'm going to be asking him what's going on in his day and how he feels his best on a daily basis. So are you ready for that, Anthony?
Absolutely. Ready to go when you are, Caitlin.
Okay, well, the first thing I want to know is what time do you usually wake up in the morning?
It's generally upon sunrise. So what I'm waiting to hear, my cues for waking up is the birds are chirping. So it's generally when nature wakes up is when I wake up. So I do wake up in the middle of the night, various times. And when I feel the stillness of the air and the night and the coldness of it, then I know it's still nighttime and I need to keep sleeping as much as I'm excited about to start the new day. So my cue is the birds. So I tune into the birds. I don't use an alarm clock. I haven't used an alarm clock for decades. So it's very much me connecting with nature and connecting with the circadian rhythm.
Nice. So when you wake up, what's the first thing you do? Do you drink water or what's going on?
What's going on? I generally, don't really consume water first up. I look forward to, my ritual is having a cup of coffee. So I have black coffee. I actually look forward to that. The night before I'm thinking, I'm looking forward to that coffee in the morning. It's just a bit of self-care for me. And, there's a lot of, talk about is, coffee or caffeine healthy and whatnot. Well, it brings a sense of well-being to me. It's part of a routine that really I embrace. I actually love the taste of the bitterness of black coffee. And it's just the way I like starting the day. So do I need to have the black coffee to start the day? No, I don't. I actually don't need the coffee. So I can easily go a weekend, weeks, months off coffee easily without any hangover or anything like that. So it's more the ritual around, that's how I like to start my day, and it's probably, I really see that morning time as great thinking time. So it's really about saying, look, it's a new day, new happenings, looking forward to it, and just thinking about what do I want to get out of today? What do I want to bring to the world, and what do I want to give to the world ultimately? So that's pretty much, it's the black coffee that sort of kickstarts, my day. So that's pretty much how I start the day, is with the coffee. Is pretty routine based.
Okay, nice. Now, something also I'm wondering is, after you drink your black coffee, do you jump right into a workout, or do you find yourself a little hungry, or do you just take it day by day? Is there something you do every day, or?
Yeah, I'll generally open the news. So I'll read the news on an iPad. So I'll have a look at what's going on. I have a interest in financial markets. So I guess that's outside of my health. It's an interest I've had for a long time, or ever since I was a kid, actually, is an interest in the economy and financial markets. And so I do. I read a lot about successful companies and what they do to become successful. Read about innovation, new technologies. I read about health, updates in health. So, I've got subscriptions to a lot of health magazines. So I pick up what's the latest articles and read through that and see if I can get some new insight into holistic health. So I'm spending that time drinking the coffee and reading. So it's, connecting with the world, what's happening, and embracing new learnings is what I do over that coffee. So the workout used to happen before kids, but now I've got children. I stay home with the kids. My wife goes and does her workouts because that's the best time for her to do a workout, because she finds if she doesn't do it in the morning, it doesn't happen. Whereas, I've never had that issue. So, we just work together. Adriana, she goes off, does a workout. I help the kids get started for the day. I have my little routine amongst that. So that's generally how the day starts.
Nice. Now, your kids aren't drinking coffee, are they?
Not yet. They're young. My daughter's tasted coffee and she likes it. She's very much like me. So she has that, attraction to bitterness. And I think that's what she likes about the coffee, is the bitterness that it brings. She's very much like me. So, she enjoys having a sip of mine, but she's not drinking coffee yet.
Okay. So what do you usually have for breakfast?
Yeah, breakfast is very staple, standard. So it doesn't change much. It hasn't changed for quite a while. I generally like to have my routine very consistent, well, particularly the morning, because the variation comes throughout the day. So I keep that consistency in the morning, and I think it gives me that sense of control over the day. So I know how every day is going to start, and it enables me to embody and embrace the day and be able to cope with variation throughout the day as it comes up. So the morning routine is just really religious. I have this oat and walnut loaf, apple and oat walnut loaf, which I can share the recipe in the show notes.
Nice.
I will. So my wife bakes that. She's much better in the kitchen than what I am. So she bakes that every week and we have that together. So we cut off a slice of that loaf and we toast it. And then with that loaf, I have a bit of nut butter spread on top. And then on top of that, I put some, I don't think in the US you have LSA, as we term it LSA over here, but it's essentially ground up linseed, sunflower seeds and almonds all grounded up. You've probably called it something else in the States. So I put that meal or that grounded up nuts and seeds on top of the spread of butter on the oat loaf. And then on top of that, I put some mixed berries. So a fair bit of mixed berries. I must say it's probably about 200 grams. So my breakfast is quite big. I have a big breakfast. It's probably my biggest meal of the day. And second following that would be lunch. And then the smallest is dinner. And then I put a dollop of coconut yogurt on top. And that's pretty much my standard breakfast every day. And as I said, I think it brings me that sense of I've got today. It's all mine, because this routine is always, it switches on my mind just as much as anything else. Yeah.
Nice. That sounds good. Sounds like you got like a nice mixture of some healthy fats in there, some carbs, some protein. For all you guys listening, that breakfast might not work for you, but I'll tell you, I think I'm going to be asking for the recipe for that because it sounds good. Now, okay. So, also, do you usually have breakfast with your kids, or are they all off at school at this time, or do you have breakfast around the same time every day?
It varies a bit. So if I've eaten a bit later, so I generally like to have some sort of fast, but I'm not religious about the timing of the fast. So like the listeners have probably heard about the 16 and 8 fast, intermittent fasting, it's sometimes called. So I generally do a bit of that fast. So I eat early in the evening, very early, as I can. And then eating in the morning is roughly between 7 and 8, but sometimes I can push it out to 10 if I feel that if I feel that my digestion isn't quite working as well as it should, and I judge that by my bowel motions, how I'm digesting my food, am I experiencing any reflux or burping or excessive wind. So I tune into what my digestion's doing, and then I give it a solid break if it's not optimal, so to speak. So, so generally I'm always sitting at about a 12-hour fast, and that's like the gap between when I last ate the night before and when I first eat the next day. So always 12 hours. Sometimes it goes out to 16 hours. So it's between 12 and 16 hours, and I'm not trying to always nail that 16 hours. I don't see that as being really healthy. It's for me, it's dieting. It's a form of dieting. You're restricting yourself. So I give myself a bit more flexibility around that fast, but I'm always doing an element of it, so to speak. So in terms of, do I eat with the family? Absolutely. Yeah, I have breakfast with the kids. So we always have, we sit down and have breakfast together. We talk a bit about what's happening, what's coming up in the day. I get to understand what they're looking forward to. So I'm always asking them what they're looking forward to. I always focus on the positive. So it's, what you're looking forward to about today. And it's always sport or playtime. And sometimes it can be certain classes that they're looking forward to. But
maybe
so I do. I missed that, Caitlin. What did you say?
I just said maybe gym class.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they love play. So it's play with their friends and doing sports. And some classes, they tell me, and it's just understanding their personality and what they're gravitating towards. So I'll just ask them, what subjects you enjoy doing. And so it's just finding out where they're at and checking in. And that helps me with my day, is understanding where they're at and how I can serve them. And I just get on with doing, eating my breakfast and enjoying it.
Nice. Now I know you walk your kids to school. I know a lot of people are all about getting the 10,000 steps a day. Do you make sure you get 10,000 steps a day, or just, do you make sure you walk a certain amount every day?
It's a really good point. And yes, I do track my steps. Am I religious about hitting a number? Not really. I just use it as an indication to see how active I was and why I wasn't, and I might need to pick it up a bit. So I am looking to certainly do between 7.5, and my top end is probably around 20,000. And beyond that, just general walking activity, which I make an effort to do a lot of walking. So as you mentioned, I walk the kids to school. This morning it was very wet, and it's probably the first time I can remember driving the kids to school in, many years. It's got to be really bad conditions for me to jump in the car and drive the kids to school. I'm privileged that I live so close to their school, which is a great thing, and I'm grateful for that. But I do make an effort to do some meetings, walking and talking, like, we have in terms of our team meetings. We do a walk and talk team meeting. So I look at the meetings I've got scheduled, and I think, can I have a successful meeting by doing a walk and talk? And if I can, then I let the person know that we're doing a walk and talk discussion, and then I encourage them to do it. Because sometimes, a meeting may require you sharing something on your screen, but not all meetings do. So I, check in with the person, see what type of meeting it is. If I can do a walk and talk, then I will. And that's how I generally get my steps up. I walk to the gym. I try to walk everywhere. So I even walk as much as 4 kilometers from my house to places. So I'm making a huge effort. And some people I know jump in the car when it's less than a kilometer. So I certainly make an effort to get my steps up, and hence why I can get around 20,000 in a day. And that's just a base load of activity, and then I do more above that.
Yeah, what do you usually do in addition to the walking for your exercise?
Yes, a mixture of activity. So I do weights, I do resistance training. So, whether it be a bit of high intensity resistance training, cardio. So I do a number of, you could say, HIIT sessions, the high intensity interval training a week. I'm also I do karate, and that karate is 3 times a week. I do karate, and I'm at the gym nearly every day. I'd say a minimum of 3 times a week and up to 6 times a week at the gym. And I'm doing a mixture of high intensity interval training, just pure weights, and stretching. So stretching is generally every day because it's post-workout, or, so I do stretching with my karate. I do stretching when I go to the gym every time. And I do some weights and a bit of high intensity intervals. So, and that's on top of that base load of activity. So I generally have, you'd say, high activity days. There's not many days where I'm really sedentary. Nice.
And do you find that like increases your energy too?
Yeah, absolutely. I find I don't get sleepy. So there'll be periods where I do experience a bit of a drop, but then that's the time when I actually go to the gym. So, and it really depends. If the drop's severe, so when I'm talking about a bit of a drop, it's probably I'm just not jumping up and down. I'm walking, but just kidding. So, I'm talking about a subtle drop where I just feel, sort of lacking my normal energy levels, and that energy is different for everyone. That subtle drop, then I'll think, okay, I'm going to wake myself up by going to the gym. And the gym does that. I come back and I'm full of energy again. Sometimes if I feel a big drop, and it could be because I've had a bad night's sleep or a couple of nights of not so good sleep, then that bigger drop, I'll definitely jump for the nap or the breathing exercises or the meditation. So I'm looking for something. So I'm thinking, yes, my body's physically exhausted. If it's a mental thing, then always the gym. So if it's mental energy drop, it's the gym. But if I feel that physical, you feel heavy, your body feels heavy to move. Yeah. That heaviness to move, to me, is telling me my body needs to rest. So I don't push myself. But if it's just that, my brain's just foggy and, it's been working hard, my brain has, but physically I've done nothing, then I think I need to clear the brain by going to have a workout. So that's sort of how I go through that decision-making process.
Nice. I know sleep is very important for your immune system and for, a variety of things. Do you think like your exercise habits, have a direct effect on getting a good night's sleep?
Absolutely. Totally. For me, there's definitely a direct correlation between the two. So, and because I know that, I make an effort. Right. I certainly do. I certainly make an effort to get the activity up, because I know those days where I've been a bit more sedentary, it's harder to get the sleep and the quality is not as good. So I do. Yeah, I make an effort to keep my activity up because I know I'll be able to have a more restorative night's sleep, and just, you just love that, that feeling of having, just closing your eyes, waking up, and you think, oh, wow, that, just feeling great, even, with that, just that solid block of sleep, as opposed to that sort of surface sleeping and you're thinking and you're worrying and you're thinking, yeah.
Yeah. Definitely. Also, I feel like, do you ever, just feel proud of yourself after a good workout, even if, especially the ones where you didn't really feel like doing it, your energy was kind of low, but then you did it and now you're, you feel prouder of yourself, right?
Totally. It is. And I think it relates back to that, how I said I have that really religious morning. It's a series of accomplishments, like little accomplishments. I've made myself a coffee. I've enjoyed the coffee. I've read some news. I've read some, news related to my profession. I feel more knowledgeable. I've made the kids breakfast or helped them get ready for school. I've taken them to school. So there's all these little small accomplishments I achieve that is just building confidence and momentum for the day. And doing the workout is like that. It's sort of, every day I'm thinking, where am I going to fit my workout? And so today I've looked at my bookings, and when I've got, these podcast interviews, when I'm seeing clients, and when I've got my school commitments or my commitments with my kids, and I'm thinking, where's that window of opportunity I can do my exercise? And so that's how I see every day. And absolutely, when I complete that workout, I feel great, because some days I think, is it going to be possible? And I get quite stressed about, not being able to fit my workout in. And so it's always an accomplishment to get it in and make it happen. So totally 100% yes. Nice.
Yeah. Now, I know you are a busy guy. So do you use like an agenda or something? Like, how do you, make sure that you're, keeping track of all your responsibilities and stuff like that?
Yes, I do run, or have a schedule, meetings. I use electronic invitations. I have an electronic calendar. So I am very, I do schedule my days. I also, but I have boundaries around the day as well. So there's periods of the day where I won't schedule meetings, or I don't allow meetings to be scheduled. So I know meetings are only going to happen between this time. And I know that outside of those times, it's my time, family time, and that's pretty much it, right? So, or time with my friends, so I have defined periods where I set meetings. And look, there will be exceptions where I need to bend the rule to accommodate like a guest I'm interviewing, because they're just not available during that window. So I do, but that's an exception. That's not the norm. So yeah, I do run a strict schedule, but I have boundaries around that schedule. I have boundaries around electronic devices. So at sunset, all my devices, computer, phone, go into night mode. And I don't know if you've ever seen night mode, but night mode looks terrible on your screen. You actually don't want to look at a screen because all that crispness of the screen that makes it look so beautiful and attractive disappears, and it just becomes, I guess, a bit like, it's that warm orange, yellow light, which lacks clarity, but it's great to see as a sunset. So my devices become less attractive once sunset hits, and then that's a cue to my brain is I need to start winding down. So it's, by setting up these boundaries sends cues to me to start my routine at the opposite end of the day.
Your night routine. Yeah. That's probably just as important, right? To get a good night's sleep and stuff and set yourself up for the next day.
100%, Caitlin. Yep. The night before is just as important as your morning routine. So as much as I have a religious start to each day, I have a religious finish to each day, and it doesn't change. And I have boundaries around my period of which I go to bed, a period of which I wake up. I've got these protective measures in place. So I don't have any electronic devices in my bedroom, nothing. Actually, my electronic device is at the opposite end of the house, very inaccessible. So even if I'm thinking, I should have checked to see if that person replied, it is so far away from me, I generally think, I can wait till the morning, right? So, and the great thing is, when you turn your devices onto night mode, no messages come through. So you're not alerted. So you haven't got any stimulus coming through. So that's the other thing. And I think that's where we can sometimes go terribly wrong, is when we allow stimulus to keep coming at us into the evening. So I distance myself from the stimulus in the evening, and I distance myself from the stimulus early in the morning. So they're the parts of the day that I have 100% control of. And then I'm only exposed to stimulus from the environment or, from devices and everything during a core part of the day, which I'm very energetic and very able to withstand pressures and stresses because my body's at its optimal. But if I didn't have those shut-offs or those disconnections at the start and finish of each day, then the middle of every day, when I want to be optimal, wouldn't happen. I'd be less resilient. So that's how I help boost my resilience, is by having these boundaries and having elements of my day where I have 100% control. So I'm not looking at the news at night. I wouldn't have a clue what's going on at night. I only open the news when I'm well rested and I've got the ability to absorb that information. If you're looking at the news late at night, when your body's tired, you're mentally tired, then that's going to hit you hard, and it's going to really affect your sleep. It will turn on the stress response. You're just not going to cope because, naturally at night we're most vulnerable, right? It's the most vulnerable time. It's dark. We're very, what's the word I'm looking for? We're very insecure at night. And so you're very vulnerable to breaches of your resilience or your bubble. And so this is why social media looking at nighttime is terrible, because you've got no ability to withstand any bad comments or negativity towards you. Zero. Your defense mechanisms are totally down, right? Yeah. And they can be hitting you from left, right, and center. So I think it's just a really good practice to get yourself into, is to prime your body, and only to, like, if I get negative comments about something I've said or done, or, not so good review on a podcast, or I can withstand it during the day. You can throw me anything because my body's at its optimal. I'm really able to withstand a lot of negativity or, bullying or whatever it could be, cyberbullying, during that period, because I've got my strong defensive mechanisms. For me, it's like, bring it on. Give it to me as much as you want, because at nighttime I'm going to shut you down, and you're going to be shut down in the morning. You're going to be, out of this world. So I think that's where, there's a lot of challenges for people, is that they are exposing themselves to these not so good stimulus at periods when they're most vulnerable.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, because people can just be scrolling through the news at night or scrolling through social media, see something negative, and just kind of keep scrolling. And then even when they put their phone away to go to bed, they're still scrolling in their head, right? Like, you need those times to set the tone for yourself so that you can build yourself up for the middle of the day. But yeah, I agree. Like, we don't need to be, getting hit with those stimulus like all the time, Yeah, absolutely.
Particularly when, we're very vulnerable and insecure, just naturally, because that's how we're wired. That's when we're most prone to attack is at nighttime. It's dark. That's when predators can, and if you look back in the primitive setting, obviously the predators were animals and beasts and stuff like that. We probably had people that were doing night watch, to look over the family, and, who knows? I wasn't back in that era, but, certainly we feel, and everyone knows how they feel at night in terms of their ability, or their resilience is generally lower than what it is during the day.
Yeah. Now, switching back over to the food, is there a certain thing that you usually have for lunch?
It's generally leftover dinner. So, and dinner is like a meal that, my wife's a great cook, so I'm very blessed and grateful that, she makes amazing dinners, and I always ask her to make a bit more so I can have that the next day, because I know the next day I'm going to be quite busy, because that's where I cram everything, is during the hours that I'm feeling optimal. So, I am just like anyone else. I'm quite time poor. And so I want to have something healthy that's ready for me. I don't really have the time to be chopping and carving up and cooking. Some days I do, and I'll do it, absolutely, when I have the time. But generally I'm prepared for when I don't have the time, and trying to squeeze everything into that really confined window. So that lunch will be a mixture of like protein and large amount of vegetables. So always consuming huge amounts of vegetables and color, lots of color. Like, we always hear about the rainbow. So I certainly live that. There's lots of color, different color of vegetables, variety. and always with a protein. So there's protein with every meal I have, as well as alkalizing metabolites, which come from fruit and vegetables. So I'm always looking to balance the protein with some alkalizing, because protein breaks down acidically in terms of pH in the body. And so I'm always, like, as much as I'm looking to balance the macros around carbohydrates, fats, and protein, I'm also looking to balance the pH of the meal. So that's another level of complexity. But for the listeners, don't worry about it at this point in time. You know, get your macros sorted, and then you can worry about other things. I've had many years to get my macros sorted, and so now I'm looking at other ways to optimize my diet. So it's a journey. So that's what I don't want the listeners to walk away and think I should be doing everything Anthony's doing. And I say, don't do that. Just, if there's one thing that really gave you a light bulb moment, embrace that, get that into your routine, but see it as a whole journey. Because you got to remember, I've been doing this journey since I was a primary school kid. I've been so invested in my health ever since primary school. And so I've got like a 40 years of constant refinement and improvement to where I am today. So don't think that happens overnight. You know, that's a 40-year journey. So, but don't think it doesn't have to take you 40 years. But what I say is, in order for habits to form, you need to be focused, and you need to focus on one thing at a time, get that embedded, and then go to the next thing. Don't try to embrace everything. And I think I've gone on a massive tangent on that question after you just asked me about lunch.
This is actually good. And this is kind of like kind of the advice that you gave me before. Like, I was talking to Anthony about how I have a sweet tooth, and I don't really want to, you know, I don't love having a sweet tooth because I don't want to have that feeling of like wanting to have sugar, you know? And you were saying, like, you know, don't, it's not, you know, you don't want to do everything at once, you know, just focused on, you know, if you have a sweet tooth, focus either on having something like watermelon maybe, or, you know, doing some breathing exercises if it's stress related or something like that. But don't, you know, don't say, you know, I'm not, you know, I'm going to try to tackle this all at once, you know, stay focused and, you know, work towards your goal, right?
Absolutely. And I think that's key, because when we become very restrictive, like there's people embracing the no sugar diet, right? And so, yes, you can become very focused and you can really restrict yourself, but you also restrict yourself socially. And you put a mental restriction on, and it can cause mood, you know, but not being so happy. Like I was talking to someone a couple of weekends ago that did a 30-day fluid-only diet. So had nothing to eat, just fluids for 30 days. And I said, how was it? How did it go? I'm always curious as to how people experience things. And he said, I felt really terrible. My moods were horrible. My wife just couldn't wait for me to finish it because I was a terrible person. And I was thinking, do you really need to put yourself through that pain in order to achieve that goal? There's so many other paths to achieving that goal. Like, do you really need to restrict yourself so much and suffer so much to achieve that goal, when you can find an alternate path that's easy, happy, joyful? You're going on a nice journey. And I find those paths are smaller steps, but you're just building over a longer period of time. But that is more sustainable, because you think about, you go on a 30-day fluid fast, and you're going to be craving all sorts of things over 30 days. First of all, you're just going to be craving some solid food.
Yeah, broccoli, right?
Yeah, of course. And then what do you do after the 30 days if you haven't changed anything else other than you've just resorted to drinking fluids? You're going to go back to the same solid diet that you're eating before, because that's all you know, right? So I just think that's where the rebound comes. This is where, you know, anything restrictive just results in this massive rebound, and hence why diets anything crash or extreme doesn't work, because it's unsustainable. You cannot continue that forever. And so there's got to be a point at which you go back to what you're doing previously, if you haven't been educated throughout that 30 days. And think about it, you still got a lot of habits to change in order to create a new diet after having 30 days of fluids. I think the first thing you're going to crave is something that you love before the fluid diet, and it was probably something that you didn't have for ages. Like it could have been your favorite croissant, or I don't know, breakfast, or ice cream, and you're going to think, well, I haven't had it for 30 days. I'm going to make up for a few of them.
I'm going to have 30 days of ice cream, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's all about the little steps and the little habits that add up, right? You know, if you're like Anthony, you know, you have a cup of coffee and then you educate yourself with the news. You know, it might be different for you, but these little things add up to something positive, you know?
And like when we talk about coffee, like people think, oh, you know, is coffee really good for you? And everything has an element of something good about it, right? So not everything's just completely bad and evil, right? Because it depends on the individual and it depends on their goals. So, you know, a perfect example is a lolly, right? So generally we see lolly as bad foods, but for the athlete, they're fuel, right? So the athlete embraces lollies as fuel to give the athlete the most peak performance it can, you know, possibly achieve for that race or that training session. And so you can't label things as good and bad, because there's good attributes to everything and there's not so good things about everything, right? So this labeling and just categorizing, you know, and demonizing carbs, for example. Carbs have got so many good points, and demonizing them is terrible, and thinking that they're evil, because they're not. And it comes back to my point I'm about to make. It's about doing things in moderation, right? And finding that balance, that, you know, that point that works for you. So with my coffee, this is a long way to tell this story, but with my coffee, I just have one a day. It's one coffee first thing in the morning. That's all I have. So I'm not having a second or third cup. And it's when you have multiples or excessive amounts of things, that's when it can be throwing you out of balance, essentially. So, you know, having 6 coffees, is it good or bad? I don't know. It depends on the individual, right? However, what I do know is that caffeine's going to be building up in their system, and we know there's a direct correlation between high caffeine and poor sleep. So, you know, that's an inevitable outcome. We also know there's a correlation between excessive caffeine and anxiety and feeling anxious and jittery, right? So we know these sort of things come from excess consumption. So I really encourage the person to find their point of moderation. So some people can have 2 coffees a day and it doesn't affect their sleep. Well, they're different to me, right? I know if I have that second cup, that quality of that sleep that night's going to be compromised. So I don't do it. And but I'm not, you know, not having no coffee. And it's the same, you know, with alcohol. People think it's either all or nothing. It's not the right approach. You need to find a sustainable way that aligns to your values, your goals, and how you want to live your life. So it's a personal journey. And I think that's the important point, is not to copy Anthony Hartcher, because he wants to feel a certain level of optimal wellness. And he strives towards that, and he's wired that way. But, you know, different people have different goals around their health and different views on what healthy is. So that's how I work with my clients, is I respect what they see as health and what health is to them and what their goals are, and I just help them achieve that. I don't tell them that they need to be living more like me, and I don't want the listeners to think they need to be living more like me, because it could ultimately make them unhappy.
Yeah, right. I think this is such a good point, because, you know, we've been, you know, told, you know, for so long, you know, this is the right way to do things and this is the wrong way to do things, you know, if you want to be healthy, you know, you eat Brussels sprouts, you know, nothing, whatever, you know, well, maybe, you know, I like tomatoes and not Brussels sprouts, you know, you have to find something right for you, right?
Absolutely. And some people can't have tomatoes because they're intolerant to salicylates. So you get what I mean? Like, so everyone's wired differently. Some people have intolerances or allergies to this and that. Well, Yes. Why say that, they have to eat that to be healthy? It's not true. And, the definition, everyone has a personal definition of health. So it's not as if we all embrace the same definition of health. And so, we need to live what aligns to our bodies, and what works for me may not work for someone else, because they've got a totally different makeup and composition, and they should embrace that and then find what works for them. And that's a journey. It's a journey of discovery, and it's an exciting one to go on.
Yeah, definitely. Man, just, doing this podcast right now, I'm thinking I'm excited to, find the exact, well, not the exact, but I'm excited to find what works right for me. And I think maybe I might start a journal or something like that, just to write down how I feel after certain things and, test it out, right?
And that's the starting point to every change that you make. If you want to change a habit and, start on a journey towards becoming a more healthier version of Caitlin, it absolutely starts with awareness. So it's so good that you've already picked that up, is, by journaling, we're bringing things to our conscious awareness. We're not, because often during our day, we're just on autopilot. We're not even actually consciously, we're just doing things, right? As opposed to having that conscious awareness of what we're doing. And what journaling does is bring it to the conscious awareness. And you're thinking, like, even if you just mapped out your day of what you did, and you're thinking, okay, these are all the habits that I want to keep because they align to my values, they align to my health goal. These are the habits that are not serving me, and these are the ones I want to change. And then you can do something about that. Whereas, often we just go about our day, we just keep doing this autopilot thing, and we just expect different results. And that's, the definition of insanity, doing something over and over again and expecting a different result.
Yeah. Yeah. Like going on a 30-day liquid diet, just to, eat ice cream for 3 days to go on another 30-day liquid diet, right? No. Yeah.
It's insane. And like, the person hated it. He probably never wants to go back to that 30-day liquid diet. So he's hoping to maintain the results. Yes, he got results. Absolutely. But he also carried a lot of pain through that, and the people around him experienced this unhappy person. And so, you can imagine, like, your, I guess, performance from a work point of view would have been compromised. I asked him about his sleep, and that was compromised. And your energy levels compromised. So, during that whole month, he could only do things that required low activity because he didn't have the energy. He was totally zapped for a month. And I'm thinking, well, time's precious to everyone. Do you really want to wipe yourself out for a month when you don't really need to? There's other paths to achieving that same outcome that are more sustainable. So I don't embrace extremism at all. I think it's the wrong way to go about health. It's about these small incremental improvements over periods of time that result in lasting change and positive change.
Right, because the goal is to be as happy and healthy as you can be, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. So why compromise happiness for health for that period of time? And yeah, I don't get it, because and this is what concerns me, is that people will hear about his results, not necessarily understand the full story, and just think, I want that result. And they're not aware of what he went through to get that result. And I think that's where things get lost out of context, because the media will say, lose 14 kilos over 30 days. And people say, yes, I want to lose the 14 kilos. And how do I do it? Just give it to me and I'll do it. And this is, where we don't really, we're just we're jumping from one fad to another, as opposed to really looking at what are the foundations of good health and building those foundations of good health, because those foundations are pretty common amongst all of us humans, right? And we can improve them in different ways to suit our lifestyle and goals, but we have a basis of good health foundations. And I find a lot of the time with my clients is that they're not doing the basics well enough. And that's where we go and spend a lot of time, is just improving the basics of good health. As much as it may seem easy, it's not, as you know, because we get into these habits, we get into this way of living, and we can start identifying ourselves with that way of living. You know, I'm the party person, party girl, party boy, and, you know, this is my whole persona's around this. I'm the life of the party, you know, and in order to keep that persona, I need to drink so much and get, you know, share my wasted stories or my, you know, nights of drunkenness with everyone. And, you know, and they have this association with this identity, and they fear losing that association with that identity. But that identity is not a great identity to be carrying through your life. It'll certainly result in a short life. There's no doubt about that. So I think, you know, it really starts with how the person identifies themselves, and they want to start to identify themselves and see themselves as a healthy individual, regardless of where they're at. So they might not be where they want to be, but they need to start that building that identity around being that healthy person. And what does that healthy person do? And if they can start adopting those behaviors of that healthy person, they'll eventually achieve that outcome. So it really starts with, you know, as I mentioned to you before, about that self-awareness of, you know, where you're at and how you see yourself. So if you see yourself as a fat person, that needs to change in order for you to get the outcome that you want. You need to change yourself, you know, change that identity around yourself as I'm living a healthy person now. I'm no longer that person. I'm leaving that person behind, and I'm going on a journey to be a healthier me. And that's who I am. I'm no longer this person. I no longer associate with this person because I'm changing these habits that disassociate me with this old person that I didn't want to ever be. And then that, I guess, leads to making sure you surround yourself in the environment that supports where you want to go. So if you're the party animal and you've got all these people that have gravitated to you around this party animal, and that's something that you don't really want to have that identity going forward, then you'll need to disassociate with that circle of influence, right? Yeah. Otherwise, it's just never going to happen because you're going to keep living up to that mantra or that title. So it does. That person that identifies themselves as fat will need to start forming circles around healthy people, find some healthy, or find people that are also on the similar journey to them so they can go on that journey together. So it does require that social support and that social network for someone to achieve that health goal.
Right. And if someone's a party animal, instead of, getting their happiness maybe from going to a party, which they don't really want to do anymore, they can, by making these changes towards a healthy lifestyle, which might seem pretty hard at first, well, they can become proud of themselves for taking this time to improve themselves, right? Maybe they skip out on a party and instead, enjoy watching the sunset. Well, maybe it's not the, instant release of like dopamine that they're used to, but it's different, and they can be proud of, it was a hard thing to do maybe to switch up that habit, but they did something to help themselves.
And they're embracing a new them. So that's, and by them building that strong connection with the new them by doing the behavior that they want to emulate going forward, such as, observing sunrises or sunsets, and because they're observing a sunset and they're not out partying, they'll probably get to observe the sunrise for the first time,
right? And
then they'll get to experience the beauty of the evening and the morning and experiences that they would have always missed out on because they were under the weather or asleep. So they'll start to, and they'll think, oh, how great is it to wake up without a hangover, and I can actually do things today as opposed to lay in bed all day. So I can go out. I can, play with my mates, my friends. I can, do some other activities that I always missed out on because I was just too hungover. So, yeah, it's it really is just embracing the new version of them.
Yeah, out with the old, in with the new, right?
Absolutely, and starting small, starting small, incremental.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for, answering my questions, because now I know what a look inside a health practitioner and what he does to make sure he's his healthiest self.
And thank you, Caitlin, for, I guess demonstrating stepping out of your comfort zone. So this is obviously something that you don't normally do on a day in and day out basis, and you embrace the opportunity. So you've now had this experience, which is great. You'll have more confidence in doing more of these things going forward if it's something that you like and enjoy. So, yeah. So well done, Caitlin, for taking on the opportunity. And listeners, I'm sure you found it insightful, because Caitlin was stepping into your shoes and asking questions from, how would the listener be thinking about, after hearing all these episodes of Anthony interview others, maybe get a bit of insight about Anthony and what he does in terms of his day in and day out. So, Caitlin, I appreciate you doing this on behalf of the listeners, and I thank the listeners for tuning in to another insightful episode of Me and My Health Up. If you found this valuable, please share it with others so that they enhance and enlighten their well-being, and we can grow and get this health knowledge out there so we can create a better society around health education. So please like and share it. Follow me on all the social media platforms to get more invaluable insight. Thank you.
Thank you.